Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Monday Q&As. So let's knock this out. First question. When will you stop criticizing others when you're a fat bitch and your physique looks like you don't even lift? Fat asshole. Well, I personally will stop criticizing others when people out there in the community who are putting their names out there and trying to coach people and give advice stop doing really stupid shit that is either hurting people or taking their hard-earned money from them without giving them the promised benefits. So when people quit doing all of that in the community, I will be more than happy to stop criticizing them and make up and be friends with all those people. How's that sound? All right, next question. What is your take on pause deadlift and why don't you do them bitches? I'm not a fan of the pause deadlift. I've mentioned this before. My reasons for it are that I'm not saying it can't benefit you, but I'm saying that I don't see from a biomechanics perspective why it would be superior or even completely equal to the benefits that you would get off of just doing a normal deadlift, pulling from the floor fast and locking as fast as possible. The reason I say that, yes, I understand people slow down and get sticking points. But when you're dealing with an explosive movement like the deadlift, your sticking points are oftentimes because you aren't strong enough to pull it fast enough off the floor to lock it. So you're decelerating too much because you need to get stronger. You're just not strong enough. You can't pull it from the floor fast enough. You're not explosive enough off the floor. The problem is that when you practice a movement too much, when it becomes a dominant movement, that movement pattern becomes permanent. By doing pause deadlifts where you come up half the way and stop and then continue it, sure, in theory you might get good at pulling from your sticking point, but you're also creating and emphasizing the sticking point more also because you're training yourself to decelerate a few inches off the floor rather than continue the momentum. So you're actually training that motor pattern. So I'm definitely not a fan. What I would recommend if someone truly feels they have a sticking point they need to work on, I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, you can still get stronger doing pause deadlifts, but I don't see how it would give you any benefit over doing a regular deadlift for that reason. But if you do feel that it's not just a speed issue off the floor, you're scared of hitting grinders on maxes it meets, and you want something to deal with it, pull off of blocks, stack up blocks to where they're about an inch under your sticking point and pull from that point using the same bar path that you use on your normal deadlift with a slightly heavier weight and do partials that way using pulling off blocks. Then you can eliminate any possible benefit that people have ascribed to the pause deadlift while removing the negatives of potentially training deceleration. That's why it makes it essentially a useless movement if you have those other options available that are going to be superior. So that's why I don't do it and I don't recommend it. All right, next question. Would donating plasma twice a week affect muscle recovery to a noticeable degree? Not necessarily from the fluid loss, because plasma is essentially fluid. You replace plasma really, really fast in your blood. Potential dehydration issues, but if you're hydrated, that's not an issue. And you're not losing the red blood cells and all of that and the hemoglobin that's going to help you with the recovery the most. However, could it impact your training? Yes, because if you've ever given blood, you know that generally when they pull it from your arm or whatever, you get a lot of bruising. It will inhibit your ability to use your arms and train for a day or two. So donating the plasma twice a week, the actual bruising and inflammation from the needle itself could be problematic for a lot of people. And if it is, then you can't train as often or as hard because of that inflammation around your forearms and your bicep and stuff. And you're going to use that on most of your big important exercises. Then it will absolutely impede your gains. So that's just something to consider there. And that's going to depends on how much that affects you personally. I know that when I give blood, I know that for me, I can't train for about 24 hours, particularly anything like a deadlift or a row. I could maybe squat. because again, my arm tends to bruise really, really bad from it, and it does inflame all of that. And it would make something like a deadlift or a row or bench press really, really difficult, and possibly, increase the chance of injury. All right, next question. This might sound weird, but does blending food have any negative effect in its vitamin and nutritional content? I use my blender to make a weight gain shake, and it's always wondered if I get all the vitamins and macros from the food that I add in. Yeah, this is an old myth that the blades will chop up the vitamins and minerals and you'll lose valuable stuff because they get broken down. That's not really true. So you're not losing nutritional content. However, what you are doing is essentially pre-digesting and pre-chewing your food. You're chewing it up with a blender probably finer than your teeth are going to chew it. So from an absorption issue and a glycemic index issue, yes, you may be causing a faster absorption of all of the nutrients. And in some cases, if it's a really fibrous food that you don't chew up very well, you might slightly increase the amount that you can absorb because you've broken it up better and you've created a better surface area and broken up some of that fiber a little bit. So in terms of nutritional content, it could be hypothetically possible in some cases to slightly increase nutritional content. But just keep in mind from an absorption perspective, you are speeding up absorption of a lot of foods by doing this. But you're certainly not losing any of the content. And honestly, is it something that I would worry about greatly in either direction? Probably not. All right, next question. What is your opinion about online dating, especially if the person, male in this instance, is quite shy until you get to know him and not really had an official girlfriend? What online dating and perhaps meeting some girls will help improve this guy's self-esteem to become more confidence to approach and chat to girls? As far as approaching and chatting to girls, he needs to just practice chatting with girls. He's got to just grow some balls and start random conversations with women in the grocery shop or at queues at places, even if it's uncomfortable and awkward. That's his best way. Or what you need to do is have him hang out with girls. If this guy's your friend, or if it's you, talk to other people and see if you can just get them to have girls hang around him so he's comfortable being around girls in a social setting. The online dating may not help that. Now, my own experience with it, I did mess around with online dating for about a year, a long time ago. And what I'm really going to say about it, it may have changed since then. It's developed a lot since I did this. This is like over a decade ago. It was still fairly new. I found online dating didn't really get me relationships. I got laid like 5 times doing it from girls that I met that way, but it really didn't lead to any relationships. Like no girl that I met through online dating ever became my girlfriend. I had sex with like 5 of them, and some of them turned into fuck buddies, and some of them went bad. It really didn't. It wasn't really good for dating, because the thing to remember, your purpose of dating should be to find people you're interested in for a possible long-term relationship, not for sex. Sex isn't something that you should waste money on or resources, and dating costs money and resources. When you're willing to expend money and resources into a girl, it should only be if you're interested in actually getting to know them as a person and having a possible relationship. You don't have to do that if your goal is just sex. So it seemed like a waste to me at the time, but I know other people who claim they've had a lot of success with it, met their partners, met their wives that way, so who's to say? That's just my own personal experience. All right, next question. Hey, so I'm moving soon, and I'm going to have to cancel my gym membership for about 3 weeks or so. So I won't be able to have access to any weights. Should I worry that much about my numbers are for my lifts? Do you think they'll go down drastically? What can I do to prevent this to the best of my ability regarding my calorie intake and exercise? I'm probably midway through my novice phase. Yeah, you're going to detrain some if you can't train. What I would recommend is that you don't need a gym to train. You need weights to get ideal training, to really get good stimulus to make progress. Depending on where you're at, say your novice phase there, you might be able to go and do a couple of full body workouts without weights. One-legged squats, bodyweight squats, squats with a backpack. Squats with one of your friends sitting on your shoulders piggyback. Go pick up some heavy stuff. Go find a park where you can do some dips between some of the bars or some chin-ups, and just do body weight exercises and just pick up heavy things that you can find during that 3 weeks between, and that will generally help you hold on to, you may be able to hold on to all of your muscle while doing that. Now you're going to lose some motor pattern performance and some strength on the barbell lifts that you don't have access to free weights for, but you will regain that very, very fast. As long as you maintain the muscle mass with an alternate form of lifting like that for that 3 weeks, you should keep your size. You may lose a little strength, but if you do that, you'll probably regain that strength within a couple of training sessions. So that would be my advice. That's how I would deal with it personally in your situation. But don't avoid training completely. That would be a bad idea if you go 3 weeks without training. Yes, you will regress, and it will probably take you a month to re-catch back up to where you were if you do that. All right, next question. What are your thoughts on supra-maximal squat walkouts and walking out a bar loaded past your 1 rep max and holding for time? I've seen other YouTubers and people at the gym do them. Is there any purpose to it? The walkouts, I don't feel that there is a physiological benefit to doing those heavy walkouts. However, there is a psychological benefit. There is something about putting 50 pounds more on your squat than you can actually physically squat, seating the bar and walking it out just to feel that load on your back and feel that load on your spine, to prepare yourself mentally and psychologically for a heavier weight. I do think from a psychological perspective that can have some benefits. I think that can help a lot of lifters. Depends on the person, but I think it absolutely can. Now, I do think there can be some slightly additional benefits to doing the same thing, walking out and doing partial squats that way off of pins, to more than anything help ingrain technique and learn the best bar path and torso position for your lockouts on your squats, on top of that other psychological benefit from the heavier weight. So I think there can be a benefit that way also. But in terms of just the walkout itself, I don't think it's a physical benefit. But for some people, it can have a very, very strong psychological benefit for preparing you for that heavier weight later on. All right, next question. And this is the last question of the week. How should one grip the bar on a push press? All right, gripping the bar on the push press. If you guys, I've got a tutorial in the how-to playlist on all these lifts I'm showing you how to do. Grip it the way I show you to grip it on the standard standing press. And that means you do a catch grip, a clean grip, back here on your fingertips, racked back like this. And the reason for that, particularly with a push press, it's not good for your wrists or your range of motion or anything else to do a full thumbs under full grip on an overhead press. It reduces range of motion, it reduces chest involvement, and it does have a higher degree of injury risk for your wrists. And particularly when you start doing a push press where you're going to push up a heavier weight than you can press up, and then it comes back down and jars the wrist, and it also reduces the flexibility. So there's a higher train of straining your shoulder because the weight stops before it touches your chest. And then it puts a stress on there that you may not actually need. It has a higher injury risk of doing it that way. So you shouldn't be doing a full grip on a push press, in my opinion. I would much rather see people do that clean grip. So again, it's thumbs under, hands racked back, and the fingertips is generally what I would recommend for the push press for those reasons. All right, guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time. But let me give you guys a bicep shot before I go. Oh, Mount Bicepius.